Breaking now. President Emmanuel Macron tells Beijing, act to reduce your trade surplus, or Europe will follow the United States and impose tariffs. Tonight, the economic brinkmanship that could reshape global trade. December 2025. In a state visit that read as both diplomatic outreach and strategic warning, French President Emmanuel Macron walked into the world's largest goods market and delivered an ultimatum: curb the widening trade imbalance with Europe, or face consequences. Macron said, if they do not react, we Europeans would be forced to take strong measures. Behind the rhetoric are hard numbers. The European Union's goods trade deficit with China has surged, a trend that, Macron argued, is hollowing out European industry and undermining innovation. For France, the trade balance with China keeps widening, and for Brussels, the problem is no longer academic, it's existential. Macron framed his visit as more than a bilateral call-out. He urged a united European response protection where necessary, but also engagement where possible. He pointed to the US example, a reminder of unilateral American measures that reshaped supply chains, and he proposed concrete steps to ease tensions. Europe could lift certain export restrictions on semiconductor machinery, while China could limit curbs on rare earth exports. In short, trade levers on both sides. Semiconductor production and rare earths are strategic knots in the modern global economy. Macron's suggestion signals a willingness to rework industrial policy, to trade reciprocal concessions rather than trade blows. According to figures cited during the visit, the European Union's goods deficit with China has ballooned by nearly 60% since 2019. Macron used that figure to underline urgency. Europe risks becoming the adjustment market, the buffer that absorbs the shocks of others' industrial strategies. For many European firms, the problem is immediate. They face cheaper competition flooding domestic markets and barriers to accessing Chinese demand. Macron framed this as a life-or-death moment for European industry. We have become the adjustment market, and this is the worst-case scenario. From Beijing's perspective, the challenge is complex. China has driven decades of export-led growth, yet global tensions, decoupling debates, and the geopoliticization of technology have made exports a focal point for critics abroad. Macron's message was blunt: change trade flows, or Europe may follow the United States script, imposing tariffs as a defensive tool. The prospect of European tariffs raises immediate questions. What would be the scale? Which sectors? How would Brussels reconcile diverse national interests? Macron himself suggested selective measures by way of example, signaling political appetite without spelling out a full playbook. Historically, the EU has used targeted trade defenses, anti-dumping duties, anti-subsidy investigations, and safeguard measures. Macron's warning implies a potential scaling up, a more muscular industrial policy that shields domestic producers while pushing for reciprocity. Across France and Europe, the fear is not protectionism for its own sake, but the erosion of competitive capacity. Leaders in Paris say the aim is to preserve Europe's ability to innovate, to build, and to sell, not to start an all-out trade war. Macron balanced firm warnings with conciliatory proposals. He invited Chinese investment build value, create opportunities in Europe. The message partnership is possible, but it must be fair. If Europe moves toward tariffs, the impact would ripple through global supply chains. Costs could rise for businesses and consumers, and retaliatory steps could follow. Diplomatic relations could strain. Yet, supporters argue the alternative is a slow bleed of industrial capacity. Economists are split on trade measures. Some warn of short-term inflationary side effects. Others say targeted tariffs can buy time for industrial renewal, a chance to reduce strategic dependencies while accelerating domestic investment. Macron's rhetoric increasingly ties economic policy to sovereignty, control over key technologies, supply chains, and the capacity to act. His pitch was twofold: pressure on China and a domestic call to arms, invest in European industry now. How China will respond is uncertain. Beijing must balance domestic industrial policy with international diplomacy. Macron's proposals for mutual concessions, easing semiconductor machinery export controls on the European side and relaxing rare earth limitations on the Chinese side, offer a diplomatic channel for compromise. For business leaders and citizens, the stakes are, pretty practical. Tariffs mean higher prices in shops, reworked supply chains, and, well, new winners and losers. For policymakers, the stakes are geopolitical, whether Europe can carve an independent strategic path between Washington and Beijing. Emmanuel Macron's visit to China delivered more than just a photo op. It was, honestly, a statement of intent. Europe is willing to press back when industrial survival is at stake, but it also holds open a path to negotiated solutions that preserve trade and innovation. The coming months will test whether Europe's warning turns to action, and whether China answers with concessions or countermeasures. For now, the message from Paris is clear: fairer trade or tariffs. The world will be watching. Reporting by Reuters. This production uses verified public reporting and public statements from President Emmanuel Macron. I'm Chris. Thanks for watching.